Hey everyone. So I watched Saberspark's video, one of them that he's been working on, talking about how indie animation is really catching up to what's going on in Hollywood right now, mainstream animation that is. And it's ironic that he posted it today, or at least this weekend, because besides this being Armed Forces Day weekend or Armed Forces weekend, if you watch some of the MLB games, you'll see the hats they're wearing kind of represent that. And the commentators, the play-by-play announcers, the play-by-play announcers kind of acknowledging that as well. What also happened this weekend, or at least on Saturday, as far as I know, was Indie Animation Day. Basically, it was a day to celebrate indie animation, for what it was, for it being sort of like that alternative that we as fans of animation, throughout the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 plus years, 100 years plus of animation, it's kind of a celebration for us to appreciate the fact that outside of the mainstream animation that we know of, there are those that are basically taking parts of their day, their livelihood, along with those that will help them, and basically trying to bring certain ideas, certain characters, certain premises to life via animation. And I heard what Saberspark had to say, in this video, and he did a really good job. I'm going to give Saberspark a lot of credit there. He did a very good job in this video. He, did his research. He gave basically the pros and the cons when it comes to indie animation, going up against mainstay animation, mainstream animation. He gave the pros and the cons, the benefits and not benefits, the ups and the downs, the rewards, the catastrophicness, and all that. He basically did as best as he could, in my opinion, give us, if you will, insight, as to why indie animation is, where it's at today and why it's so popular. I mean, he even talked about the fact that even well-known animators like Don Bluth and Ralph Bakshi, if you will, Don Bluth and Ralph Bakshi, kind of, in their own way, godfathered, the animation, the indie animation, I guess you could say, genre. They kind of godfathered, they kind of breathed life into it when they went off and did what they wanted to do outside of the major studios that they were working for or associated with. I mean, Ralph Bakshi, we know, is known for not just his adaptation of Lord of the Rings and several other stories as well, like Cool World, but he's also known for things like, his very adult, sense of humor, like American Pop, Cookskin, if you will. What's the other one? I'm trying to think. Fritz the Cat, if you will. He's known for that kind of animation, if not more, and contributing to animation very similar to that on an indie level. Same with Don Bluth, but Don Bluth, for most of his career, was always tied to Universal, but again, he's one of those people that had godfathered, indie animation, as a genre because of him going off along with other disgruntled animators, at Disney, going off and doing their own thing, which is why we ended up getting throughout the past 40 years some on and off hits when it came to Don Bluth, which felt very Disney-like, but with a darker feel. I mean, Secret of NIMH, Land Before Time, American Tail, you name it. I mean, even Titan AE. Titan AE, which was one of his final mainstream films for the time, animation-wise, was something that obviously he wouldn't have been able. I mean, maybe then when it came out, he could have done under Disney, but not really. So, he, along with the likes of a Ralph Bakshi, as Saberspark kind of alluded to, Godfather paved the way for indie animation to be what it is today. And it wasn't just, them and what they become or what they started to become that he used as an example. No. He also talked about a lot of the beginning threads of indie animation through the internet. Like when the internet, excuse me, sorry, I had to cough there. But when the internet was just coming into being, you had very primitive versions of what you have nowadays, like Windows Movie Maker. We still have today. I have it on my laptop. Adobe Flash. Now you got things like Adobe Premiere and everything that evolved out of Adobe Flash. You got software like Cyber Power Director. You got Toon Boom. You got iCut, I think, through Microsoft and stuff. Well, not Microsoft, but you got iCut through Macintosh, Apple, if you will. You got all different kinds of software nowadays that in the past were very, very elusive to have, because the only folks that had them at that time were major studios like Disney and Pixar and so on, that were using it to create their own projects. Some that were good, like the Toy Story series, Reboot, you name it, and even Beast Wars. But still, only they had access to that kind of software. Nowadays, a lot of folks like me, you, Saber, VisiPop, and others, we have access to that kind of animation software that allows us to do animation of the Toon Boom variety, like what we saw in My Little Pony My Little Pony the movie 2017. They used for the Princess Loona animations that they did, prior to that. You have access to software that allow you to do those kind of things now, and even create your own projects. Again, he brought up not just projects at the beginning, the dawn of the internet, where all this was really coming into being. But he also brought up, of course, some of the more recent examples, like Lackadaisy. He brought up Hell of a Boss. He brought up Has Been Hotel. He brought up, Godspeed and others, And to me, I look at all those indie animations, Monkey Wrench, and I say to myself, and I hear what Saberspark's saying about it, and I and others have thought about this too. It's like, this is just an example of people that grew up on animation and saw what the mainstream media gave us animation-wise. And we said to ourselves, you know what? If we could do it one day, we're going to do it in a way that we, want to see. We want to make a reality. And at the same time, we also wanted to keep it true to what we grew up with, even if our animation styles were more of today's animation styles than they were then. But yeah, you see some of those shows that he's talking about and everything, and it's like, if you would have said something to somebody years ago, decades ago, when they were growing up, watching weekday afternoon cartoons after school, watching Saturday morning cartoons on Saturday morning, if you would have told that person that, hey, I bet you could do that, better than better than the people behind it right now, and I bet you can, not only do that better, but you can probably do it in your own way, probably give it an edge. If someone would have told you that decades ago, you probably would have believed it, but maybe not have believed it, because you're like, yeah, maybe I could, but I don't know what the future is going to hold. And now all of a sudden, here you are, basically doing exactly maybe what that person probably would have told you. And when I look at what Vizzy Pop has done with the likes of Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel, and now you even have somebody that worked with her wanting to do their own little side project, their own little side show, animation wise. And it's like, okay, just there's a GIF, if you will, or GIF, if you will, out there of what they want to do. And to me, I'm thinking, well, what they're showing here has promise, but will they be able to get it off the ground? And I think obviously if they go out and say, hey, I'm part of the Has Been Hotel Hell of a Boss crew, they might get help. And if Vizzy Pop, backs them up, that's a good backer, if you will, as well, to help get that off the ground. You also have some shorts that have not seen, the light of day since the first introduction. And I think obviously, if they get an opportunity to shine again, fans will love them. I mean, there's one called Blue Hilda, was basically like this, I guess you could say, monster witch girl, outcast of a witch girl. That's a good-hearted witch, not bad. And she can basically become anything or anyone she wants. To me, when I saw that short, I'm thinking this has a lot of potential. And if given another chance, they could do a lot more. They could. There's even a short that debuted on Indie Animation Day, Indie Appreciation Day, or Indie Animation Day, if you will. There was even a short, I'm going to try to find it here, I have it in my history. There was even a short that debuted, and let me see if I can find it here. It's called Celine and Cheswick, and it has a very Animaniacs, Tiny Toons-like feel to it. And a lot of people have said that it reminds them of sort of like, the Celine cat character reminds them of Rita from Animaniacs, where the Cheswick character reminds them somewhat of, Charlie the dog from Looney Tunes. And some have even said Celine is not just a, reminder of Rita, reminds them of Rita, but reminds them of a hybrid of both Rita from Animaniacs and Fifi La Fume from the original Tiny Toons. So looking at the cartoon, because I did see it, I can see where they're coming from. I can see where they're coming from. And to me, honestly, if that was to get picked up as a regular series, even if it's on YouTube or it goes to Amazon, Amazon or Max or whatever, Cartoon Network, I've got a feeling if that series gets another opportunity to shine, you're looking possibly at a hit, a huge hit, in my opinion. I had to put a cough drop in my mouth, so if you hear anything, it's just a cough drop in my mouth. But anyway, like I was saying, I think if they were to, try to, get that promoted even more, if they were to get that promoted even more, down the line, Kickstart, Patreon, whatever, as well as try to see if anybody like an Amazon or a Max or whoever would want to pick it up, I guarantee you that would be a big hit. Because it would give a lot of people who would be watching it on a bigger scale, that grew up with Animaniacs and the original Tiny Toons and saw the reboot of Animaniacs and are trying to give the new Tiny Toons University a chance. It would give them those kind of vibes. Because you look at the Celine cat character, and oh my gosh, you want to talk about a very Looney Toony Animaniac-like character. She's it. She's it. I mean, all the guy has to do next time around, if he wants to do another short with her, is have her melt if he wants to. I mean, she has that Looney Tune Animaniacs like vibe, right? All they'd have to do, and I think the person is Mongo Pangolin, Mongo Pangolin, Pangolin, Mango Pangolin. All he'd have to do is just do another animation where she melts into a puddle of goop, because that's the way her character, in my opinion, is being presented. But have it done in a way where she admires something and it just causes her to melt. And you could just have a friend just walk over and be like, let me get a mop, and everything, and kind of squeeze her back to normal or something. That could be the next thing he does with the character, because she has that vibe. She's like the comic relief, and the Cheswick dog is like the straight man, if you will. They're like the straight man, if you will. And I think that's a great combination. And obviously what Mongo is trying to do as well is give off the tease of maybe, Celine, feels something more for Cheswick than just friendship. But I digress. Anyway, like I said, I saw that and I enjoyed it, and everybody else enjoyed it. And that's just an example, again, of what Saber is saying. Indie animation has gotten to a point now to where Hollywood and the mainstream animation studios are starting to take notice. Maybe not as fully as they should, but, they are. They are starting to take notice in a way that you can't tell me they don't have meetings before they start their day and they're like, man, what can we do to stop this indie animation, craze from creeping up on us? What can we do? What's our plan? Because they don't know how to handle it. They don't. They don't know how to handle it. And to me, I think that's great. I think that's a great thing to see, because it keeps them on their toes. It's like people say about wrestling and everything. When you have companies competing against each other and all that, they keep they both keep each other on their toes and trying to make the other better. However, in this occasion, I should say, you have indie animation basically keeping the mainstream animation on its toes and basically forcing it at times to do better than what they're giving us right now. And I think the other reason too, like I mentioned earlier, is you have people like me. Well, I'm not an animator, but you have people like me that grew up in my generation, if not younger, if not older, that are like, hey, I want to create what I want to create. I want to see what I want to see become reality. And we're starting to see that. We are. I mean, the other thing about indie animation too is they could be a viable source or resource, if you will, to continue something that got left out on a cliffhanger. And even if it's a mainstream series, like I say, indie animation can help, fill that gap, if you will, that was left behind. I mean, for example, I've talked about them before, Team Season. These people are behind, the revival of Sonic the Hedgehog, the Saturday morning 1993 to 1995 series on ABC. They are behind the revival of what would have been the third season of that show. Because that show ended on a cliffhanger. And now they're basically on the verge, of, finishing up the pilot episode for the third season to see how fans will be very receptive of it. And you could tell that they and their team, they've gathered together, are putting a lot of hard work into it. And they even got, several important, I guess you could say, people and groups, behind them, where they're stationed at, which is in Canada. They got some very important people and groups behind them that support them in this. And you got them along with along with the Patreon and whatever else they, able to, financially get, utilize to get behind us to make this reality. You look, through the Patreon, you look through the Twitter, you look through the YouTube, with, the updates they give you, and you see basically hard work paying off. You see it. And what's crazy about this is all like Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel were at one time, mostly Hell of a Boss right now, all mainly crowd-funded and fan-funded through the Patreon and other fan, funding means. And what we're seeing is basically something that's staying true to what the original was. But from a story perspective, being done for an older audience, just like X-Men 97. X-Men 97 is meant to target at first, in the first season, the established audience, as well as introduce these characters to the new audience and the series itself to the new audience. But it's mainly being matured and grown up and everything for the fan base that grew up with the original. And that's what you see with Team Season. The difference, though, is X-Men 97 had Disney and, the Marvel division behind it. Here, Team Season, trying to get Season 3 off the ground, they're getting the backing of the fans and other support that they can get, and and the other difference is it's basically, in a way, not only a continuation of the original ABC series, but it's being done, as part of the indie animation genre. Yeah. Basically, you got an established series getting to continue that was made as part of the mainstream animation, genre. You have an established series being continued, but as part of the indie animation, which is really cool. It's really unique in its own way. So indie animation can also basically not only provide the groundwork for new original concepts like what VisiPop has done and others have done, but also it could help, continue the legacy of established animation properties, either original or based on something, and indie animation can help do that because it's being done by fans who grew up on the original that want to see it have a conclusion. And again, going back to, the original ideas, like I said, with the Mongo individual and his Celine and Cheswick series, you look at that and you're like, obviously he drew inspiration from Looney Tunes, Tiny Toons, and Animaniacs. That's great. And like I said, if he wants to do something else with the Celine character, one thing that was common with Animaniacs and some of their characters and Tiny Toons and some of their characters is, they would melt. They would do a melting, lustful melt cake, whatever. I could see him doing that. In fact, I suggest he should try doing something like that and see how fans react. And what's crazy too, is, one of the things Saber talked about, or at least he alluded to in reference in this video, is the fact that you have fans that could, do animation projects based on anything, as long as other fans are behind it and enjoy it as well, And when I look at something like, let's say, what, Desi Arts is doing with her Metamorphosized to Malleability series and the annual Melting Me-Eye series, what I see Mr. Internet Man doing with his Veronica Demonica Mystic Makeover series, and so on. When I see stuff like that, honestly, I could see them if they wanted to take that to the animation, take that to the next level, and try to get somebody that's, experienced in indie animation that might, say, okay, fine, no problem. Let's collab. Let's work together. Let's bring these characters to animation life. You know, hold on for a sec. Hold on. Sorry about that. Had to finish off the cough drop. But anyway, I could see them working with somebody to make those into animation reality. I mean, who wouldn't want to see, if you're following Mr. Internet Man on DeviantArt, who wouldn't want to see the Veronica DeMonica character come to animation life? I mean, we already see people that collab with him, like Trouble TRO and others, using the software they got to try to do that. But who wouldn't want to see it maybe in 2D animation, sort of like, in the veins of Hell of a Boss or, Blue Hilda or Celine and Cheswick? Who won't want to see that in animation, 2D, whatever you want to call it, and see maybe a little short, like an idea, how it would look, how the DeMonica Veronica Mystic Makeover series could look. Same with same with Desi Arts. And her, like I said, her Metamorphosis to Malability and, Milton Miai annual series. Who wouldn't want to see that? I mean, I would, just to see, how, it would translate from, word to screen to animation, or from, picture, webcomic to animation. I would like to see it. I mean, and you can have a lot more fun. You can have a lot more fun with that. I mean, even Trouble T.O. and Joven 16, they could take their stories and basically be like, okay, let's see what happens if we put them in animation. And again, they're slowly trying it with a little like transitions here and there on some of their pages. Again, I think it would be I think people would definitely get a kick out of it, and I think it'd be worth giving it a try. I do. And what's crazy is you don't even have to do cartoons or whatever based on those characters. You can do your own. I mean, imagine doing a cartoon series where a girl has slime girl powers, likes to be a slime girl, and just likes to have fun shape-shifting into whatever she can come up with. But one of her favorite pastimes, just for the heck of it, is to melt down into a puddle of goop and relax. I mean, come on. Come on, with the right people behind it and the right, story or premise, that could work, and fans would be drawn to it just to see that fluid animation be utilized in a way to see what they could do with that character. But in closing, though, I do recommend checking out Saber's video, because he is right. Indie animation is on the rise now, to where fans are going to prefer it more so over mainstream animation from studios like Disney and so on. And what it's doing is it's keeping that mainstream animation on its toes to do better. So that way, fans don't just have to be reliant on indie animation, but even as they get better, thanks to indie animation being on their toes, if you will, just as much as they get better with indie animation being on their toes, indie animation at the same time is going to get better, in the meantime as well. With the software, as Saber put it, becoming more readily available for purchase or for free, indie animation is going to just keep growing and growing and growing. I mean, we're getting to a point to where AI can take what you're writing or you're typing up and turn it into full-fledged animation without you having to lift a finger. I mean, yeah, it may take a few extra tries here and there to get exactly what you want, at least close to it, but it's getting to that point. So to me, when I look at indie animation and where it's at right now, I say this in closing. I say keep growing. Keep getting stronger, keep growing, and explore other options out there. I mean, nowadays, if you go onto DeviantArt or other places, a lot of people like the shape-shifting, melting slime girls. I say that with all due respect, no offense. They like the female-led stories of those. Try those out. And I guarantee you might get an audience, for it. You might get a huge audience for it. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see, what they will do. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and sort of give a reply to Saber's video, as well as recommend you guys checking it out, as well as give my own thoughts on indie animation and the rise that it's on right now, and it continues to have. But let me know what your thoughts are. What indie animation do you like? Do you think maybe they could try some of the ideas I suggested for indie animation in the future? And do you think it is helping keeping mainstream animation on its toes to get better? Let me know what your thoughts are. Live chat during the premiere, where super chats, as described in the description, are open. Hopefully you've donated in that. If not, super thanks will be open as well throughout the premiere and afterwards. And also check out my Teespring store and affiliate stores as well for products and stuff that you might enjoy. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are overall. And until then, y'all have a good day. God bless.